everybody, this is So Many Sequels. I'm Josh.
And I'm David.
That's all you get today. So we're going to have a good time, though.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of unusual. It's not often that it's just the two of us. You and Garrett had a...
Fall is approaching. Schedules are getting busy. We've had Andrew drop out of a few episodes. Now we've got Garrett drop out of this one. So, it's just, we just keep the car rolling.
Yeah.
While, people have things to do. We'll all be back here and there eventually.
Oh, yeah. We'll all be back in time for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely for that. So yeah, it's the two of us today, and we're gonna talk about we're finally diving into James Bond. Long time listeners of the show might remember that we really tried very valiantly to do this early last year, when No Time to Die was supposed to come out. I think it was April 2020, and as y'all may remember, that was the first major movie to be pulled from the schedule at the start of the pandemic. And now it is finally, fingers crossed, coming out very soon. So the plan back then was we were going to do all of the Daniel Craig Bond movies because this is going to be his final turn as James Bond. And so that's what we're here to do today. We're going to talk about Casino Royale, the movie that reinvigorated the James Bond franchise. Prior to Daniel Craig, it was Pierce Brosnan who had his own style. Those movies were their own, like, glorious 90s hokey action kind of stuff.
A lot of camp.
There's a good word for it. And Casino
like full like Batman and Robin camp, but definitely their own, like, it was very tongue in cheek.
Yeah, James Bond levels of camp. But Casino Royale came around and kind of Batman Begins James Bond a bit by giving us a more realistic, grittier take on the British super spy. So that's where we're at. Had you seen this before, or was this your first time?
I had not seen it before. I had seen the opening chase. I'll call it the opening chase. The chase through the construction yard with all the fancy moves. I'd seen that like 20 times. Like I just one way or another just ran across it or saw videos of it.
In the beginning on TNT.
Back in my early teens, I would just kind of peruse YouTube and watch like greatest things. Best of this, best of that, best car chase in cinema history, best of this kind of thing. And this was my first viewing of it was in one of those. It was like best chases in cinematic history, and they included this in there. That opening chase with it was all the parkour stuff, which we can get into in a minute because I thought
parkour.
That was always been one of my favorite things, and I think it partially inspired the parkour scene of The Office. But no, this was my first time watching the movie in its entirety. I'd seen that beginning bit. I'd seen some clips here and there and over time. But this was, in fact, the only other James Bond movie I've ever seen is Die Another Day, the final Pierce Brosnan.
Okay, so you're pretty new to the whole James Bond experience, anyway.
Yes, I've always wanted to get into it, though.
We're getting an interesting microcosm of the show here. Even though there's only two of us, we still represent the others well because Andrew and I are fairly familiar with James Bond franchise, and you and Garrett are not. He had actually never seen any. You've at least seen one, but you're essentially on level playing field.
Yeah, I made it.
That's where we are here. So Casino Royale is based on the 1953 novel that Ian Fleming wrote, and this is actually the third time that book has been turned into a movie. In it, Bond is assigned to play Mads Mikkelsen's character, Le Chiffre, in a high-stakes poker match and basically bankrupt him because Mads Mikkelsen uses the money to bankroll terrorists and terrorist organizations. So it is Bond's job to win all the money instead, and that is our basic premise. So as a newcomer to at least Daniel Craig's James Bond, what are your opening thoughts? What'd you think?
It's funny because I was really excited to get started. I've always wanted to get into James Bond. As a fan of sorry about that. As a fan of franchises and long term stories and stuff. There's like 20 something films now. There's all the books, there's all the games. So like there's plenty of stuff to get into and plenty of variations to get into. So I was really excited to get started. And it had me hooked fairly early on with the chase and with the black and white and the opening number by Chris Cornell. I thought he blew that out of the water, the late Chris Cornell. And then it really kind of lost me for a while.
Really?
Yeah, because and it's a very specific thing. And I know I went on a big rant earlier this year when talking about Spiral when it comes to lazy exposition. But this movie didn't have like any real exposition until around the 45, 49-minute mark, where I was like, I kind of know what James Bond is doing, but I don't know why he's doing it. Why is he chasing this down? What are they trying to prevent? There was no establishment of what the stakes were. I knew he had caught this guy and he knew that he got some text from somebody that said ellipsis. I knew that he was tracking down the guy who sent the text. I knew that once he tracked down the guy, he knew that they were trying to cause some kind of explosion at an airport. But I didn't know what for or why. And then so we finally get that from Judi Dench, played by M. I know that's a regular character in the franchise, but this is the first time that Judi Dench is playing that role. Mm-hmm. Which incidentally, I've seen Judi Dench in a lot of things, but this was the most I had heard from her in a little while. And all I could think the entire time was about her doing the voice on Spaceship Earth in Disney World. It was just so weird because like she's so delightful on that, where she's like, "Hey, would you like?" She's like, "Here we're learning about writing," and here she's like, "Damn it, Bond!" She's so angry, but it's like I don't know, it's like the same tone. So after that point, I was like, okay, all right, so now we're gonna go do this. And the movie's structure of the poker game, that second act really, I think, got me back into it. So as the first hour got a little muddied in a lot of action that I didn't know the stakes for. And then the second half was a little bit better. And I'll be honest, I thought the climax was a little weird because it kind of feels like things are settling down and you're like, oh, this is kind of going out with a whimper. And then they're like, surprise, here's one more twist. But I felt like the twist came off as kind of confusing in the moment. And they give you enough answers as they wrap the movie up to kind of, I guess, understand it. But as it was happening, I was like, what sense does that make? Why would she do that? So anyway, that all that to say, I'm kind of middle on it.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Josh? Is this your first viewing of this particular Bond film?
No, I've seen this movie before. I know I saw it when it initially came out in 2006, and I'd seen it a couple more times over the years, but this was my first rewatch in a while. I hadn't gone back to Casino Royale in a long time, and it still really held up for me pretty well. It is a pretty strong Bond movie. What's nice about it is, the way James Bond works in the film universe is every single movie up to this point is standalone. Like we'll take Pierce Brosnan, for example, since he was the most recent previous to Daniel Craig. All of his movies, those movies don't connect in any way. You don't need to see one to understand another. And what I like is this is the first time that they're going to take Bond and create a longer arc with him. And so we see that set up in this movie. Mm-hmm. So that can continue on in future installments. So I like that we're getting a true fresh start of Bond. This is early in his career. He's pretty fresh as an agent with MI6. And it's kind of nice to just come in at the ground floor and know that, all these past decades of Bond films, you don't need to really be familiar with it to jump in here. You really just need to know the base level stuff of, okay, James Bond's a secret agent. He kills people and he's good at it. That's really all you need to know. And I like that a lot. The action scenes are good. They're very good. I think they're better than any other previous Bond movie. I mean, You're limited in what you can do with action in some of those older ones. And then the Brosnan ones really focus on the over the top, like explosions and missiles,
like crazy stunt work.
And this is like, you get a lot of cool combat and chase scenes. Like you talked earlier about that opening scene where they're just parkouring all over the place. Bond is chasing down this guy and they're running on top of roofs. They're on like giant cranes in the sky. My favorite part of that scene is there's a part where the bad guy is running through a building and he like grabs a pole and swings through this tiny slot in a wall. And then James Bond just hulks Kool-Aid Man through the wall.
Just smashes through it. It's one of those things to focus on that scene for just a second. It's one of those things where like if you're ever an opportunity to be in a film class, or if you ever want to study film, you can tell stories in more ways than just dialogue. And a chase scene like that is a really interesting way to tell a story. It gives you character. It shows that the one character is, finesse and deception. And you can tell he's had to run away a lot. He has run away a lot and he's had to get away from a lot of situations. And it shows you that James Bond has a combination of things. He's brutish, right? He smashes through a wall. He'll drive a forklift through a fence instead of jumping it,
Yeah.
But he's also resourceful. Instead of trying to also jump down an elevator shaft, he instead will, jump in a scissor lift and break it so that he falls all the way to the ground quickly. He's resourceful and witty. It kind of establishes how he views his situation versus how this bad guy does. Now, the bad guy doesn't get to go on for very much longer, but it's a great way of showcasing your character without bogging it down in a ton of dialogue, and it's fun and it's an efficient way to do it. But anyway, but you're saying some of the other stuff, the other action you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, I think, one of the highlights of the movie is that chase scene. But then there's so much more throughout it. I mean,
them going after each other in the airport when he's following that guy.
Yes, that's cool. But action is just one part of James Bond. And I feel like this movie also did a good job of showcasing those other elements of his character. He's also, when it was announced that Daniel Craig would be Bond, there was some skepticism about it, as there usually is when a new character takes over an established role. But Daniel Craig didn't match visually people's idea of James Bond. He is, by no means a not good looking man, but he's not Pierce Brosnan.
No, there's sort of a classical English look that they usually go for with James Bond.
But this movie still shows that he is pretty dang suave. He's still quite the ladies' man, which is all key elements of the character. So he kicks butt, he gets the ladies, he looks cool in a suit. They showcase all that real well. And then you talked about the poker scene. That is I think a really great extended part of the movie. It's really like a whole act on its own because there's so much tension in that between Daniel Craig and Mads Mikkelsen as Le Chiffre, who this really was his international breakout role. Mads Mikkelsen wasn't quite known at the level he is now before this role. And he is quite, I think, intimidating in those poker scenes. There you really get an idea of the monetary stakes at play, I think. And there's a nice back and forth. He beats Bond initially before Bond comes back and takes him out in the poker match. It was, in my opinion, as someone who could give zero craps about the game of poker or card games, it made watching it somewhat more exciting than it normally would be. I can't get to the World Series of Poker stuff that's on ESPN and all that. But you got a super spy, high stakes match with a international terrorist ringleader, and that's cool.
Well, yeah, and
that.
poker, sports in general, or games in general are so lend themselves to cinema because you have clear stakes, and you have clear you can establish your motivation, and having the two characters right across from each other, it really provides that level of the characters are trying to understand each other, and they're sick. Sorry, I have a child kneeling. They're trying to they're saying a lot to each other without saying anything, or they're hiding, they're sneaking.
Yeah.
And it really just showcases, I think, what kind of people they are. It showcases Bond's arrogance. It showcases Le Chiffre's deceptiveness and his kind of ruthlessness in a lot of ways. And it gives you a chance to kind of highlight your other characters on the side who are watching from the outside. Luckily, they give us two characters. I mean, they give us Eva Green. Is it Eva or Ava?
I think it's Eva, but I don't know.
Eva Green and Giancarlo Gianni, who plays Renee Mathis. They're on the outside. They're watching. And they're kind of giving us, every now and then, they'll give us a little bit of well, if this happens, then this happens. If you're a viewer and you're not exactly, and you can't follow the game as well.
Yeah.
Kind of helping us out. So, yeah, I love that whole section. Made it really interesting because the fate of the world's not coming down to a fight. It's not coming down to, I say the fate of the world, but the fate of the situation is not necessarily coming down to like a fist fight, or it's not coming down to a race against time. The tropes we see fairly often. It's coming down to a poker game, whether or not Bond can get out of this. I will say the thing about that game that gets kind of weird is James almost dies 3 times during that entire game. It's a lot of back and forth, and I feel like there's a lot of stop and start to that whole bit. But it was enjoyable. I don't have a problem with it. I think it made for an exciting time.
Yeah, I agree that it did.
I also like Jeffrey Wright as his American counterpart, who's there to help him out.
Yes,
that made for. I've always said I really if the Bond franchise ever wanted to take a hint from the MCU, they'd start crafting an extended universe of other spies who work with James Bond from time to time. We'll see though, not likely.
Right. I mean, you never know. Didn't MGM or somebody get sold to another company?
Yeah, they did. I feel like we talked about that in the past, and now I don't remember what it was.
I feel like Amazon bought it.
Yeah. I think
so maybe under Amazon's leadership, they will look into a more. It's hard not to imagine a franchise in 2021 being steered toward a cinematic universe, because that seems to be the norm for large franchises now, thanks to the success of the MCU. And I think, and you're right, this is one where I think, they could pull it off. It could be cool.
Well, what it would, we're getting a little off course now here, but all it would require is just establishing the idea that, James Bond exists, and there are likewise, spies or secret agents in other places and other countries, and give them their own film, and maybe eventually that those two characters interact in a movie down the line. It doesn't have to be Avengers level, but you could set up either an American character, French character, whatever you want to do, and maybe they're not even a spy, maybe they're a bad guy. You just have you bring a bad guy over or something from.
I mean, in a slightly similar vein, we're seeing that being explored now with the John Wick movies. They're launching a television show based on the Continental Hotel in the movie. So, maybe they start slow with that. Maybe there's a James Bond TV show about, I don't know, M's other agents, something like that.
MI6,
but it could be cool. But yes, back to the movie itself, Casino Royale. I wish I do like the Bond movies. Never in my life have read a Bond book, so I wish I could speak to how it relates to the novel, but alas, I cannot. And I can't even tell you how it relates to the other the other adaptations of this movie because they are older than my interest in James Bond goes. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I thought was striking about this movie is the level of violence that's portrayed in certain scenes.
Oh, yeah.
It is brutal at times. And I'm particularly just going to jump into referring to the scene where Mads Mikkelsen has tied up James Bond in a scary, musty basement,
of some sort, yeah,
and has stripped him naked, and is just beating his very sensitive parts with like a big, thick whip rope.
Yeah, it was an aggressive torture scene that I was not prepared for in any way.
Like I said earlier about James Bond, he is known for being a ladies' man, and the only tool more important to James Bond than his gun is his other gun, and you can't take that away from him. But he's just beating him, and
he's going after it.
The best part of that scene is when you get to see some of his humor shine through, and his just pure defiance and toughness, where he's like, "I have an itch," and he hits him, and he's like, "No, to the right."
It was I don't know how I've gone. So we got 15 years ago. I don't know how in 15 years of never hearing about the scene. As it's happening, I went, "Oh, this doesn't look good."
It's brutal.
And then he starts waving that rope one, and I'm like, "Oh, no,
what you gonna do with that?
Gonna do with that?" And then he starts doing it, and I was like, "Oh,
no." I remember.
You gotta stop, sir. Like it was like one shot. It was like one shot, and I thought to myself, he goes, "Tell me the password." I was like, "Okay, you got a piece of paper? Go write this down." Like he he would be like, "Tell me what it is." I would like, "Go do it right now." Don't bother. I'll tell you this right now. If it ever comes down to torture for me, I'm just giving it up right away.
Don't even get started.
Don't even get started. I can handle no physical torture at all. What do you want to know?
I love the quick build up to it too, because you're immediately like, what is going on when you see them? Why are you cutting the seat out of that chair?
Yeah,
that's weird.
I thought they were making a toilet.
See the big rope, and you're like, oh, you've done the math now.
Yeah, the anticipation.
Yes, you know what's happening based on those two things.
Yeah, and luckily he only had to survive 4 of those before Mr. White shows up and takes care of the problem.
Yes, he is. Yes, Mads Mikkelsen is annihilated very suddenly, and I think surprisingly, he's just gone.
As far as a bad guy goes, I gotta say, Lashif as a character kind of gets punked out a lot, because there's a point in the movie where he gets taken down by a couple of bad guys that he screwed over by messing up in the first place, the situation why he has to have this poker game. And they're like threatening to cut his arm off and then cut his girlfriend's arm off. And they like choke him to the ground. I'm like, ooh, making the main bad guy kind of look like not the main bad guy.
I mean, that's the I don't know what word I'm looking for, but that's like the whole idea of the rich bad guy, isn't it? He's not the real bad guy. Right. He just makes the money. Yeah. He's just as at risk of dying as anyone else because, that's why he's so hell-bent on getting the money back from Bond, is he knows if I don't, these guys that I pay will kill me because they're actually ruthless and I'm just rich.
Yeah, it's definitely there's stakes for him as well. He's not just winning for the fun of it.
I also had to laugh. It's not that it's like done badly or anything, but it's like, God, when that scene ends and it cuts to James in a wheelchair on the beach.
Yeah. It was when all that was done, and it was James like in a hospital and and stuff. And I was like, that was when I started to think, this is kind of a weird climax. I wrote it in my notes, weird climax, because I was like, James doesn't kill the bad guy. The bad guy gets killed by other bad guys. And then James is just chilling at a hospital for a good 10 minutes of the movie. Like he's there, Mathis comes in, they take him out, Vesper comes by, he hangs out with her.
It is weird.
MI6. I was very not ready for it.
You mentioned earlier that the climax and the ending felt weird, and I agree with you. It is off-putting because it's like, okay, we just saw the bad guy get murdered.
Yeah.
there's not a lot of movie left, but there is enough movie left to make you wonder what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, there's like another 30 minutes left after he shows up at the hospital. So I was like, well, what's going to happen from here?
And then we see, I'm again laughing because he's in this wheelchair and Vesper comes up and is like teasing him seductively. And all I can think about is there's no way his pieces work. Like, what are you doing? You're probably hurting him so badly.
He's like, chill out, lady.
Yes.
Give me a few days here.
It's like not even brutally crushed.
No, it's like that episode of Futurama, you know?
Him.
You know, that episode of Futurama where they have to have a death by snoo snoo, you know?
And, right.
You know, Zab Brannigan's like, ladies, please. The flesh is willing, but the spirit is willing, but the flesh is bruised.
That is him. Yeah. That is him. Although it seems he won't even let that stop him.
No. I mean, James is very charming, but also very like abrasive in this movie in a lot of ways, because you kind of get like, I could understand like being not he's kind of a jerk, you know? And Vesper talks about him having his armor on and stuff like that. And like he's kind of rude at times, but also he has like little sneaks of charmingness in there where you kind of go like, yeah, okay. Maybe, you know, like, you know, clearly he's preparing himself. He's not trying to be too romantic because he knows he can't afford to have a lover.
Well, this is, you know, like I said earlier, this is the beginning of Bond's career, really. And so we get to see some of the key elements in his life take place that make him into the like cold-blooded, efficient killer he becomes. And that is partly watching Vesper drown right in front of him. You know, he opened himself up personally and romantically, and then had to watch her die. And that's part of what makes him into 007, as he officially becomes at the end of the movie when he kills Mr. White and then does the infamous James Bond line.
Yeah, and as I think I know this, but I believe Quantum of Solace picks up right from that moment.
It picks up pretty quickly after that.
So that'll be interesting to see where the fallout goes there, because like you talked about, this is the first in the James Bond movies where the story is somewhat continuous. Like the events of these two movies play into a little bit of Skyfall, and then we get Spectre and finally No Time to Die. So it's going to be, I kind of like it. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how the character progresses from here.
Yeah, I agree. Well, any other thoughts on the movie itself, or shall we move on to another segment?
You know, I was trying to think if there's anything else worth talking about, because I don't, you know, I was going to mention that we talked a little bit about the chase through the airport, but you know, when he gets out of the car and all the like American police officers are all over him, I was like, yeah, that looks right. Because I was like, if they're going to get whoever jumps out of that car at that point. I kept waiting for him to be like, no, you don't understand. But anyway, I was, so, you know, like you said, we talked a little bit about we talked a little bit about the history of James. Oh, you know what? Here's actually the one thing I found in my notes I wanted to mention. So the parkour guy at the beginning.
Yeah.
So fun fact, you may know, may not know, that guy's actually credited with being one of the inventors / innovators of parkour. So Sebastian Foucan is actually he's credited with inventing it along with another guy. And so getting him was a pretty cool get for the movie at that point, because it's like we didn't just go out and get a guy, we got to go out and get the guy.
So is this movie, I don't know how the timeline works with parkour, but did this movie like help explode the popularity of parkour, or was it already kind of growing?
It was, I think it was already sort of on its rise. I don't have in front of me when exactly it started, but it definitely put it, from what I read from a stuntman who talked about this performance, he said that this sort of put parkour in a place in cinema, because prior to that, it was like really popular on YouTube. It was popular in like some music videos and stuff, but at that point. But this was like the first time that like a big studio said, or like a studio or a filmmaker or something said, hey, let's put this unique style of stunt work and moving and you know, free running and stuff. Let's put it in a movie. And like, you know, it's something different. Nobody, I mean, and you can go back and you can watch movies before 2006, no chase scenes or anything like this. So yeah, really cool that they were able to bring that connection in.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And, you know, I thought it was done pretty well. I didn't realize this until after I watched it, but the movie was directed by Martin Campbell, who also directed the 98 Mask of Zorro film, which also has a lot of great kind of street level action sequences.
Yeah, I was going to look him up too. And, you know, he's got a new movie coming out this year, The Protege, or that may have already come out.
Oh, yeah, I think that is a pretty recent movie. Michael Keaton, Maggie Q, I think, are both in that.
Oh, and he did the Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds.
Well, you know, that's a shame.
That's fun.
We can't all have hits.
No, well, you know, he's got a few good ones in here, but you know, they can't all. Yeah, like you said, they can't all be.
Yeah, they can't all be hits.
That's such a crazy movie in retrospect, the Green Lantern 2011 movie, because that's got Ryan Reynolds, and Taika Waititi, and yeah, a bunch of other crazy. You know, but anyway,
yeah,
I guess that's about all I'll also have to say. I do have a little story I could tell.
Would love to, yes, love it.
About James Bond. So, you know, like I said, the only other Bond I had watched prior to this one was Die Another Day, the last Pierce Brosnan film. And I remember pitching to my dad to let me go see it. That movie came out in 2002. I was 12 years old, right?
Right.
And as a 12-year-old, I was under the impression that, thanks to things like Austin Powers, that the James Bond franchise was kind of risque, you know, that there might be some sexual stuff going on, you know? And so I remember pitching to my dad that I was old enough to go see that, even though I was 12 and the movie was PG-13. And he was like, well, what's going to be in it? And I was like, well, Dad, I know there's going to be some violence and it might be a little rough, but as you know, I'm a very mature young man and I would never repeat the things I see in the movie. And there might be some sexual things, but Father, I have learned a lot over these last few years and I think I'm mature enough to handle it. And luckily my dad, I don't think actually thought that the movie was going to be that bad, so he let me go see it anyway. I did have to go. He did not see it with me though. He dropped me off with two of my friends and we saw that. That was a good year for movies for me because we saw Spider-Man that year.
Oh yeah.
Another Day. Men in Black 2, I think, came out that year. So it was a fun year for movies. And I was like, honestly, Dad, if I can see Men in Black 2, why can't I see James Bond?
That's fair.
Okay. And I was also under the impression that, you know, it was a new James Bond movie. And I was under the impression that James Bond was like, because, you know, I watched all like TV Land and things like that. So I was like under the impression that like James Bond was like cornerstone of movies, you know, and if you had never seen a James Bond film, like you were out of it. Which in a way maybe you are, but you know, I was like, this is my chance. This is a James Bond movie of my time. I need to go see it. So yeah, I remember being very excited about it, and then I didn't really get into it. Halle Berry was fun though.
Yeah, I mean, those movies have their place. And you know, he peaked. The Brosnan age peaked with GoldenEye, obviously.
Seems like it.
So, what are you gonna do? If anything, I'm surprised that these movies have pretty much maintained a PG-13 rating over the years.
Yeah, they've never gone for that R rating, I don't think.
You know, if that brutal torture scene in Casino Royale doesn't get you an R rating, I don't know how much further you got to go.
No,
but I think we've had similar tangents before in other movies where we've kind of established that violence doesn't really seem to get the R rating in America as much as sexual content. So
sexual content, a lot of cursing, things like that.
Yeah. Anyway, this movie made a lot of money, right?
It did. So, you know, it opened November 17th, 2006.
Great
long,
day.
long time ago. I was 16 when this movie came out. You would have been about 16 too, or you were 16 too, weren't you?
Yeah, we were both 16.
Yeah, so we were
17.
made. So interestingly enough, did not open number one though.
Really?
Yeah, it brought in 40 million. It was actually a great weekend at the box office though, in terms of money brought in. Brought in $40 million, 40.8 its opening weekend, falling just behind another movie which brought in $41 million. So between your top two movies, it's 80 million that weekend. And that movie was Happy Feet. Happy Feet opened at number one over Casino Royale.
Never saw Happy Feet.
Oh, I did, and I didn't. I mean, I liked parts of it, but I didn't like all of it. I was 16. So, but so 41 million for Happy Feet, 40.8 million for Casino Royale in the number two spot. At number three, in its third weekend, you had Borat, Cultural Learnings of America from Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. At number four, in its third week, you had the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause.
Wow.
That brought in 8.3 million. And at number five, you ever see this movie, Just Stranger Than Fiction? With Will
No, I never saw that one.
It's I've heard good things about it, but I've also
got Nicole Kidman too.
I think so. Is she the voice? Is she the She might be the narrator. Hard to know.
Hard to know without the.
It's not really hard to know.
No, it's not. It's Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Ah, there you go.
I don't know who. I don't know what I was thinking of, but no, I did not see that.
Garrett and Andrew aren't here. I got a little more time. I'll just drop in. Also, at number 6 was Flushed Away. Number 7 was Saw 3. And then at number 9, in its 7th week, bringing in 2.5 million, was The Departed. So not necessarily a terrible weekend at the movie theater. Casino Royale domestically would go on to make $167 million in the United States. I'd put it in the number 9 spot for 2006. The number 1 movie that year was Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest, which was an explosive movie.
Oh, yeah.
At number 2, this is a movie we reviewed, Night at the Museum. Number 2 domestically on the year. At number 3, another movie we've done, Cars, although I was not involved with that particular review. But Cars, fine. At number 4, X-Men: The Last Stand. And at number 5, The Da Vinci Code, which we've never done The Da Vinci Code, but maybe one day we should.
There are 3 or 4 movies, I think.
Yeah, the Dan Brown series, as it's known. Yes. It's kind of a boring title for a franchise.
Yeah, the Dan Brown Cinematic Universe.
I'll drop in a few more here. Number 6 that year was Superman Returns. 7 is where Happy Feet fell. Ice Age: The Meltdown. And number 10, The Pursuit of Happiness.
Wow, that is an interesting year for movies. I think there are some good ones on there, and there are some not good ones, and there are some completely forgettable ones.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's overall a pretty fun list. Like, I've seen a lot of movies on this list, and there's some I haven't. Number 13 is Click. Number 12 is Talladega Nights. You got The Departed at 15. Dreamgirls as one of my favorite movie musicals, 19. Yeah. That's about it. No, there's other good ones in there too.
Then I guess let's talk about the
hang on, I'll drop this in here too. International, worldwide, Casino Royale finished in the number 4 spot with 605 million. So
okay. That's over $500 million. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we've talked about the financial reception. Let's talk about the critical reception a little bit. I don't know. We've yet to figure out the way to play our guessing game with only 2 of us. I don't know if you have any ideas or if you just want to talk openly about how it's rated.
I don't know. So I guess we'll just guess. I'll just guess and you guess. We won't necessarily pick a winner, but I'm going to guess this has probably got like a 3.7 on like Letterboxd.
Okay, that's very close to what I was going to guess. I was going to guess in the high 3s, so I will. I'll undercut you and bet on the low end a little bit and do it just a 3.6.
3.6. Oh, we're both wrong. Good for Casino Royale. It's a 3.9.
3.9.
Which is basically as good as a movie can do on Letterboxd. Like it's getting over that 4.0 is difficult.
And let's see here real quick.
What is it on Rotten Tomatoes?
That's what I was just about to look for, just for the sake of looking. On the critic side, we've got a certified fresh 94%. And on the audience end, a statistically similar 89%. So this is a very well received movie on all the platforms we check, at least.
Yes, I think so.
The critical consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that Casino Royale disposes of the silliness and gadgetry that plagued recent James Bond outings, and Daniel Craig delivers what fans and critics have been waiting for, a caustic, haunted, intense reinvention of 007.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely, there is, since we kind of have the benefit of hindsight of like, now we've been living with this Bond for 15 years. Yeah. And Bond has become this sort of like more cynical, more dark series. And I kind of feel like now that we've done this and we're headed towards a new James Bond soon. And I think you see this a little bit in No Time to Die, but I think we're kind of like ready for a fun Bond again. We're ready for maybe not returning to the full on crazy gadgets of the Pierce Brosnan era, but maybe a like a little bit more of an adventure feel, a little bit more of a classical fun time,
Right.
Here's a review. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't want to throw us off on too big of a tangent because I do want to hear some of those Letterboxd reviews. But I was going to say I think they picked the perfect timing for a grittier reinvention of Bond because, in the late 90s, we saw a huge amount of success from Austin Powers, who primarily is a parody of those older James Bond films with the over-the-top silliness and the sexual innuendo and the over-the-top goofy villains. So you almost wonder if that played a role in MGM saying, you know what? Let's make it real.
Yeah,
let's not give Mike Myers more fodder for next time.
And you kind of since Andrew's not here, I'll say you kind of hit the nail on the head when you talked about Batman Begins. Is like the mid 2000s saw kind of an explosion of, I'm not going to say darker, but just in general more grounded, grittier takes on these kind of fictions. Whether it's Batman, even Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies feel a little bit more grounded, a little bit more weighted than future installments.
That is a great comparison because we also watched Batman turn more toward camp in the 90s, just like James Bond did. And then around the same time, we see grittier reboots of them. So yeah, I like that comparison. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the appetite in post 2000 society was for more of a realistic, grittier kind of take on those things.
We weren't. I think it very much was a sign of the times that we were moving away from silliness, and we were kind of like, there was kind of a loss of innocence a lot, and I feel like cinema reflected that in sort of like, kind of don't want to get too into it, but the post 2001 world, people were kind of more willing to admit like, hey, things are dark and things are a little, like a torture scene like what we got in that James Bond movie. You might have saw in like a grittier R-rated film prior to 2001, but to get that in a PG-13 movie, it was pretty aggressive. And I think there was sort of a desire for our heroes on film to be a little bit more compromised and a little bit more vulnerable.
I think that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Hey, to get a little joking, one of my favorite Letterboxd reviews right here just says, this dude cannot have a good time on vacation. Here's another one. This is the Citizen Kane of movies. That's a thinker. That's a thinker.
That is a thinker.
And He says, this is good. This is kind of like you were talking about with poker. This person says, I don't understand anything that happened in that entire poker scene, but I strongly believe something important happened.
That's how I feel watching any kind of poker match on television.
There you go. Good reviews. 3.9. What would we give it, Josh?
You know, it's gonna be on the high end for me for sure.
Mhm.
I think I'm gonna do 4.5. But and it's just because I am going against my instincts to give it a 5 because I don't really have an issue with it, but I think there probably are some that I'm just not seeing because I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it. I kind of struggle with this. I think I'm gonna give it a 4, like a 4 even, because I think it is a very good movie. I think it's very well done.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier on, I did feel a little lost at times. So I kind of felt like they could have done a little bit more to help me know what was going on.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think it's a good start. And clearly the movies kept going. So I'm kind of hoping that and each movie, Sam Mendes, I've looked this up, directed both Skyfall and Spectre. So there might be some more conformity there, but I know that the next movie is a different director. And I know that, Skyfall and Spectre have a different director. And then the last one's a new director. So I'm kind of hoping that as the creative hands change, that maybe that irons out and that smooths out and maybe have a better, it's a little clearer next time. I have no idea what happens in Quantum of Solace. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about that movie. So I'm really interested to see what happens.
Yeah, we will definitely get into that more next week, but there are, Quantum of Solace is different. It's different. But yeah, that's really it. I think that's Casino Royale.
All right.
All right. So we will be back soon with Quantum of Solace. Again, like I said at the beginning, our intention here is to do each of the Craig Bond movies up to the release of No Time to Die, which will be his final movie in the role.
Mm-hmm.
We've been trying to do this for a long time, so it's very exciting. Hopefully, we get all of us back here pretty soon. I do know I spoke with Andrew recently, who is still on assignment, and he is very interested in returning to do Skyfall with us. So we will be doing that, and he will be here for Skyfall and No Time to Die at minimum.
Cool.
He's a busy man. If y'all don't follow his,
I had a feeling Andrew likes
his Facebook page, see Andrew Nichols Photography. I will promote him since he would never do it to himself.
Right.
He's too humble.
Yeah, look, Andrew, incredible photographer.
Yes, for sure. He's doing galleries now. He's got art in shows. He's working on all kinds of cool stuff. So that is why he has not been around as much lately. So, but he's not quit yet.
No,
we're not letting him out of his contract.
No, he's just, of the four of us, he actually has a supreme amount of talent. So he's just leveraging.
Yeah, the rest of us have not figured out how to monetize our talents.
Yeah. No, well, one day, maybe one day.
But he's good at it. Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, you guys find us online, somanysequels.com. We got all our links there. Follow us on the socials. Subscribe to us on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, and leave us a rating and review on that app too. That helps us out. It's all about algorithms. So the more you share, the more people can hang out and watch movies with us.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time with Quantum of Solace.